World Order, we are 3 today. Buckeye Scoop turns 3 years old today. Thank you for all of you guys who've been with us this whole journey. It's been fantastic. I am so excited about the stuff we have coming. It's camp season. Official visits just ended today. There's all kinds of great stuff going on. Summer conditioning, got a huge nugget update on that. Got expansion stuff. I mean, we're just swimming in content on BuckeyeScoop.com, and it's really, really high level stuff. Breaking AAU stuff with the Miami Hurricanes, potentially Florida State, some of these new members to the AAU. Notre Dame is now in the AAU, so we got some big traction coming to join the Big Ten. Really excited about that. We're going to talk about all that and celebrate our birthday a little bit with you fine folks. We appreciate you guys as always. So thank you again. We can't do it without you guys. We appreciate you guys so much. Please leave us a like. Click subscribe, click that little alert bell if you enjoy our content. Shout out where you're from. I got a Dubai for the first time. So we got a Dubai, we got Vegas, we got people from everywhere. Naples, Florida, Canton, Ohio, a lot of Columbus, obviously love you in Columbus, California, just people everywhere. Appreciate you guys. Love seeing where you guys are watching from, where you guys are tuned in from. It's always fun to shout out your hometown. So appreciate you guys doing that. Keep doing that. I am going to get right to my good friend Nevada Buck. Nevada, how are you today?
Well, I'm doing great. I'm telling you, it's not a coincidence. The Denver Nuggets are playing right now, and I posted a nugget today. Think about that.
Your favorite team is about to win the NBA championship just because the Nuggets carry the day. The Nuggets are the best, and same as on Buckeye Scoop, man. You post a nugget, that thing is like liquid fire just coming out and people love that stuff because you had some really good, interesting stuff. Again, it's summer conditioning. They did testing, they had discretionary time. We got some roster management stuff happening. We broke. But hey, that's why you're on the scoop, is you guys want to know who's really moving it and shaking it and who's doing it. And summer conditioning, for those of you that don't know, is the most miserable time of the year for the football team. It might be as miserable as training camp. Maybe camp's probably a little bit worse, but I mean, it's tough, man. These workouts are not fun. You're stressed out all day thinking about some of the conditioning runs you got to do, and that's kind of where they're at right now. I mean, that turf gets really hot in the afternoon when these guys are going to run their conditioning and their gassers and get their bodies right for the season. Nevada, we won't spoil the Nuggets. You got to be on BuckeyeScoop.com to get the full thing. But what are some of the talking points that we had today that you discovered when you're talking to some of the people inside the Wood Hayes about what's going on in summer conditioning?
Well, the first thing you have to remember, and we've said this before, but I really want to make this point, and it's really important. If you don't get anything else from these podcasts, I really want you to get this point. We are the only guys on the OSU beat that do this, that aren't beholden to Ohio State. So we're the only ones that'll tell you when they're doing good. We'll tell you when they're doing bad, but we're not just going to say everything's great, because the way Ohio State operates is if you say something bad about them, they come after you. And they'll come out there and say, oh, you said something bad. We're going to restrict your access to practice. We're going to restrict your access to camps. We're going to do something. And Ohio State can't do anything to us. So they can't control what we say. So if you want the truth about what's going on at Ohio State, you want the unvarnished stuff, like I said, the good stuff, the bad stuff, the in-between stuff, this is a podcast for you. So having said that, some really good stuff going on the strength and conditioning side. We had some stuff on the about a medical red shirt on an offensive lineman that I thought was particularly interesting. It got a lot of traction. But one of the things we talked about is, they've started to break down the groups into squads, and kind of a military setup where, when one of the squad kind of messes up, that the rest of the squad is kind of punished, and it helps kind of police things internally, because nobody polices things best than the players do. They can do better than the strength and conditioning coach, better than the assistant coaches, better than anybody there. They can do it themselves. But if you're late to a training session, to a lifting session, to whatever, the entire squad is not allowed to dress in the dressing room. You got to dress at home. You got to go home in your car. I mean, like, that's a thing. And, may seem like a little thing, but it's kind of a big thing in terms of the way that Ryan Day's kind of taking this group responsibility of your squad, responsibility of your teammate. What you do affects other people. He's taken it to the next level. I think it's fantastic. I think it's a big, it teaches a bigger lesson about accountability and about how things that you do, little things that you do, can impact everybody down the line. And like I said, I don't want to sit here and say, "Oh, I thought it was a great part of the Nugget," but I thought it was a really interesting part of the Nugget. I think people kind of enjoyed that, and when I heard that, I was like, "Wow, that really makes it." Now, did they do anything like that when you were at Ohio State? What was the level of the individual screw ups that led to group accountability, and how did they handle it when you were at Ohio State?
Yeah, we've done things like that where, if a guy screws up, they'd put him in a folding chair, and then he'd have to watch like his position group get gutted, do, burpees, barrel rolls, like a 5 a.m., like just kill him, like a kill him session where they're just like, up downs and, stuff till guys are, proverbially like puking and doing that type of thing because, and again, they started doing that after I left because I would have killed. I mean, I would have been out of my mind if I had to get up early and get gutted because of someone on my squad. Because again, like, that's so irresponsible, so disrespectful to Ohio State. But there's been an epidemic of tardiness, and Ryan Day had enough of it. And now, guess what? If a guy's late, nobody gets to change in the locker room. You're not allowed to shower in the locker room. So these guys have to go run in, it's 90 degrees out, but on that turf, it's probably 105, 108 degrees. And you got to go with, your swamp donkey and sweaty and nasty, go sit in your car and drive home and shower and then have your nasty clothes not on the locker loop at the Woody Hayes. Like, I would be like, it would be like Full Metal Jacket, like the scene where they put the doorknobs in the pillowcases. I mean, it'd be like that. And, again, I love it. But again, when you have that severe of a consequence and you're still late, you're still that big of an a-hole, then, anything that is bad that happens to you, you've probably deserved, unless you have like a really legitimate excuse, like just being late because you overslept or you're lazy or you didn't go to bed on time or whatever. Like it's ridiculous. And like we every football team until you get to the league, because in the league they just cut you and tell you to go home. But when you're dealing with like there's always a couple guys that you don't sleep good at night because they might be the guys that screw you. And again, there's a sliding scale on how much that you put up with depending on what their talent levels are. And if they're exceptionally talented, then they've got a longer leash than if they are just average guys. But you take too many of those guys, man, and it you're gonna have anarchy. And and I think that it's good because if I'm a squad leader and I have a kid who's like that, because there were kids like that. I literally can see their faces appearing in my face. Like I could literally say, and I don't want to say names, but there are guys that were like that I played with, and like I in '07, and I'm whatever, but like I was pretty adamant, and I really didn't make a ton of friends by having a pretty direct voice about things like that, because again, it's just if you're going to script the little things like that, you're going to screw us when you play on Saturdays. You're going to screw us in practice. You're going to screw us when we need you. So, I don't really have much use for you. And again, you create your own problems sometimes when you deal with that. And, you can't always be perfect because you don't live with these kids and you don't know them 24/7. But, you generally can get a good feel for the kids that are low motor versus the kids that are high motor. And, when I was a graduate assistant and a player, I hated low motor players. And the low motor players are the ones that always kill you. They never produce, and they always just suck oxygen out of the building by doing dumb things like that. So, but yeah, it's really interesting. I love that. I love the accountability, but it is disappointing that guys have actually been tardy when there's that severe a consequence. So, what did you think of that? Were you surprised that I'd be upset and angry if someone was late and I had to come in early and do up downs?
Well, I'm surprised you weren't naming names, man. I want to hear like Barton's biggest fights, Barton's brawls, who Barton was on, and stuff like that. Yeah, it's like the fact that you weren't making friends is kind of shocking to me because you're such an affable, big, lovable teddy bear kind of guy. But yeah, no. When I heard this about what Day was doing, like I said, I like the tougher Ryan Day. I think I've said this many times on the thing. I think he found a little bit about himself during the bowl prep last year when nobody gave him a chance against Georgia other than Nevada and Kirk. We were the only two people that I can remember that were. I thought they were a great bet. I loved the underdog role. I loved kind of the position it put Ryan Day in, where nobody gave him a chance in that game, and they darn near pulled it off. Darn near won a national championship. But I think Dave found some stuff about it, and I don't think he's going to be playing anymore. And this is just another example that he's willing to turn up the pressure a little bit on the guys, turn up a little bit the pressure on the group to gain kind of a desired behavior out of the collective. And I personally love it. And I think it just shows the maturation of Ryan Day as a head coach. Ryan Day, when he came to the job, was a brand new head coach. He'd never done it before. So he was literally cutting his teeth as the head coach at the Ohio State University. And that's not an easy job. If it was easy, everybody do it. And it's not easy. And that's why so few people do it. And so for him to do it as a rookie coach, I think he's had to learn on the job. He's been learning on the job. And I think we're going to see the best version of Ryan Day in 2023, and I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, I don't know how many people have actually cut their teeth or have come to Ohio State as a guy who's never been a head coach before. Like, now that you say that, I mean, obviously Luke had the 1 year, but everybody else going back as far as I can remember had been a head coach somewhere before they got to Ohio State. So, sometimes it's nice to be able to work some of the kinks out when you're not in the white hot light that is Ohio State, where you have to win every game. If you don't win every game, the season's a failure. Like last 2 years, we've wasted two really good teams that both had, we had the number 2 overall pick at quarterback, and you got to cash the chips in. I mean, I'm telling you, and Georgia. The reason I was confident in Georgia, and I talked to you, is like I watched their film, and I watched our guys' film, and I compare it, and it's like I think we match up really well with these guys. We have 2 really good pass blocking tackles. Our quarterback's playing really well. Their receivers aren't great. I think that their O-line was really good, but I thought that we could at least match up with them, and and we did. We literally were 10 yards away from winning a national championship last year. We get 10 more yards, and Noah Ruggles cashes in that field goal, and then we go and stomp TCU in the championship game. So that was the year to get Georgia, because in 21 they would have whooped us because they were way better on defense. But last year, they had Jalen Carter and they had Nolan Smith, and again, Georgia won the national championship back-to-back years. I'm not denigrating them, but it's just like that was the year to get them, because we had a huge advantage at quarterback. We had a really good offensive line led by our 2 tackles. That was the year. So again, we study numbers, we study film, so it's a really easy process on Buckeye Scoop. Like it's not, oh God, we're scared. Oh God, the big bad Bulldogs. Cause like when we played Bama in 14, I wrote a preview in the Columbus Dispatch with Tim May, and I literally said, we're gonna beat Alabama, because Alabama gave up like 600 yards to Auburn in the Iron Bowl, and I watched their film and I was like, these guys are getting thrown all over the yard by Auburn, and our guys are better up front. And what happened? We ended up running all over them. We ran for 200 yards on that Bama team, and everybody was scared. Everybody thought we were gonna get blown out. And I was like, guys, just look at the trenches. Look at the trenches. Look at the perimeter matchups. Look at the quarterbacks. I mean, they had Blake Sims at quarterback, so they didn't have Tua or Jalen Hurts or like a superstar. They had a guy that was probably the worst quarterback they've ever had. So you just kind of compare those things. Just don't be scared of the uniform. A lot of people just get scared of the uniforms. I just look at who's in the uniforms and how do we match up with it. Big expansion news. We had a huge expansion podcast last week, and since then, Miami and Notre Dame are now in the academic institution. What is it? The AAU?
American Association of Universities.
Yeah, because people are like, is it the basketball tournament? I was like, it might be. I don't know. But it's a big time. For people that don't know what that is, Nevada, what is that? Why does it matter? And why is it important to expansion for the Big Ten?
Well, it's a designation. It's basically a designation that you get to kind of symbolize your kind of commitment to research and academic excellence. And not every school has it. And the Big Ten up until now has been all AAU members, with the exception of Nebraska, who had it. They lost it because their medical center was off campus, or there's some other kind of obscure thing with that. But basically, it indicates a commitment to academic excellence that the Big Ten presidents have deemed to be really essential to be part of the research consortium, because the research consortium the dollars that come out that dwarf the dollars that actually come from football. I know when we talk expansion, primarily people think 90% of the time they're thinking about football, but there are other considerations. There's the research aspect of it. The Big 12 right now is looking to become a basketball conference, and they may offer some basketball only memberships to schools like Gonzaga, to UConn, to kind of pair with maybe an Arizona that they pull, and a Kansas that they have, and become kind of the premier basketball conference. So there are other considerations when you're talking about expansion, but AAU membership for Notre Dame was really like the last piece that was kind of missing from them as part of the expansion puzzle. Now they have that designation, and we think it's just a matter of time until they're part of the Big Ten. And again, people can say what they want about Notre Dame. They're a huge brand. They're a huge brand. They're a brand that's been carrying NBC football solely as kind of the sole product of NBC college football for a long time. I think they'll make a great addition to the Big Ten, along with some again, the pickings from the Oregon Washington coupling from the Pac-12, and then we see what happens with the ACC. So no, lots of exciting things happen in expansion, and it's happening now. We're talking about next 30, 60, 90 days. Expansion stuff is going to start hitting. And remember, we're the people that told you about USC and UCLA coming to the Big Ten. So don't sleep on this, because this is going to happen. Don't be surprised when it happens. Look for some big things to be happening here over the summer.
Yeah, and we've literally strategically hired the Oracle, who is the foremost authority on expansion, just because of what his job is and his placement. So he's been killing it, and on top of your connections, that you had when you broke SC. I mean, I felt like that was literally like almost 3 years ago. SC coming. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, I personally would love for Notre Dame to join the Big Ten, just because I think it's great for the brand. I think it's great for Ohio State fans. Because again, I know what you guys want. Obviously, we want to win every game, win the national title, but like you also want to watch like these big games, these competitive games, these games that have a lot of juice behind them. Start wiping away some of the smaller teams, and again, we're evolving towards it being an NFL type deal where every week it's two brand name teams. It's not, there's not a 1AA team coming in here that we get to kick the crap out of, or a max score, or you don't get those 4 guaranteed wins anymore that just from rolling the helmets out, because the Big Ten released like 9 guaranteed wins. But I want to see Notre Dame. I would give anything for the U to get in here. I don't know if they're actually going to get in here, but if they got in here, that'd be unbelievable. Florida State would be a great one. I think Miami'd be incredible, because I think they would kind of have that same effect if they would ever get into the Big Ten that the LA schools, UCLA and USC, have, where fans will go down, they'll travel down there, especially if you're playing Miami in October, November, man. Like, fans will be on those Allegiant, $29 flights to South Florida. They'll be riding up, and I mean, for Miami, it'd probably be a boon, because their whole stadium would be filled up with Iowa Hawkeye fans and Indiana Hoosier fans and whoever, So again, I think anytime that you can play in warm locales and it helps recruiting, it's great. But yeah, it's going to be it's monopoly, guys. I mean, literally, you're buying the properties and you're trying to get the most compelling product as you shop the entire whole to these TV brand, to potentially Apple, potentially Amazon. Obviously, you have NBC. The TV thing is just massive, and these TV contracts, they get bigger every time they come up for renewal. So, I mean, it's big business. And again, when these things come up again, and whatever it is, it's going to be, there's probably going to be 50 teams left standing, 40 teams left standing, and you're going to have the NFL. You're going to have the SEC versus the Big Ten, and you're going to have 16-team playoff, and it's going to be just made for television the same way that the NFL is. We had official visits this weekend, Nevada. It's so weird saying these June officials. It's been a few years now. Got a little bit of news. Got a lot of heat on Elijah Moore. I'm going to throw him on the board real quick. This kid out of good counsel, great football out of good counsel in Maryland. Looks like he's coming to Ohio State now. That is all the Diddy. Big, tall, lanky kid. We're going to throw his film on here and break him down. Nevada, why does Ohio State do these official visits so well? And what are the benefits, in your opinion, to getting these things knocked out over the summer?
Well, I mean, the good news is you don't have a lot of the conflicts. I mean, let's talk about the good and the bad. But on the good side, you don't have all the hassles of game day. You don't have the hassles of, playing that little 3-hour skirmish there in the game. Heaven forbid you lose the game too, and that puts a big damper on things as well. when you have these visits over the summer, you can bring out the entire staff. You can break out the Hawaiian shirts and meet the recruit at the airport if you need to. You can give your sole undivided attention. They're bringing in 3, 4, 5, 6 guys at a time. It's not such a circus like it is on a big game weekend. Downside, you're not getting that buzz of the stadium, that stadium feel, the magic that is the stadium when there's 100 and whatever 10,000 people in the stadium, and that incredible sound when they score a touchdown or when there's a big win. So it's kind of a trade-off, but I know the coaches prefer it. The recruiting calendar just keeps moving up and up. With the early signing day. So I think for Ohio State, it's just part of the process right now where these things get done earlier. You can knock your NIL stuff out earlier, and that way how much money you have left for your big fish that are kind of going down there. You kind of land your first guys, and then you go after the ones that are going to take a little bit longer, maybe take up a little bit bigger piece of the NIL pie. And I like I said, I'm a big fan of the summer visits, and I think you've always got the unofficial visits during the fall for people to come on out and see a game, and especially with NIL right now, it used to be, well, how could they make another unofficial visit? Because the expense of flying to the stadium and the expense of coming out for a weekend, it's like, well, with NIL guys, everything's possible now. So those types of things aren't quite the big issue that they used to be. Wink, wink. And I think Ohio State can kind of enjoy the best of both worlds with a summer visit schedule, official visit schedule, and then a fall unofficial come see the big game and enjoy what it's like to be a Buckeye.
Yeah, I think one of the things people don't really talk about with NIL, as we have this film rolling in the background, is that it potentially, for Ohio State, it's a huge advantage because, one of the things that Ohio State has to constantly fight is that most of the talent has migrated south. Like when you want the best players in the country, Georgia, Texas, Florida, California, we don't go into Louisiana because we never went into Louisiana, South Carolina, those states. And now you can literally pay for these parents to fly up for every game. So that used to be something that we'd have to fight because, if you're, a kid that's from Miami and you go to the Hurricanes or the Gators, that's a car ride. If you go to Ohio State, that's a flight on Southwest or Allegiant or whatever from the airport. And, foundations can cover that now. So that's something that, people don't talk enough about how expensive it is to travel. When your mom, a lot of these kids aren't from means. A lot of these kids are, almost in abject poverty. A lot of single moms. And now all of a sudden, you can pay for everything. So now that burden of having to get to the games and flying to all the away games, flying to all the home games, that's gone, because of for the NIL thing. And I would, if I got a superstar, if I've got JJ Smith, telling the foundation and these guys, look, guys, here's the deal. You got to pay for his family to fly to every game. Done. Wrap it up. Get it done. Take that burden off. Hey, you got to pay for their hotel too. Done. That's what you can do. That's all legal now. And that's the beauty of it is when you're in the South and you've got kids that can just, you're playing the SEC, you play in the ACC, your parents can drive around, the South and load the car up in South Florida and head up to wherever. That's a lot easier to get to than getting to Ohio, which is, 18 hours in the car each way. But I think that, the official visit stuff in the summer is really good for the coaches because they can knock down all of the low-hanging fruit. All the kids that are committed, all the Ohio kids, get them out of the way now, get them out of the week, the big weekend where they're all here and they all get to bond and do the kumbaya. And then when you get to the season, you can just focus on winning football games. Because again, I hated hosting kids when we had, you got to go beat Michigan. They all want to come to the Michigan game. And, when you're a coach or a player, you've got all this anxiety and energy, and because you're ready to play the game of your life, and then you got to make sure that a kid gets in on time. You got to make sure that he's having fun. You got to make sure that his steak is big enough and it's cooked right. And now that you can do the stuff in the summer, you don't have as much stress. Like in June, these coaches are, the camps suck because they're just long and tiring and exhausting. But you get into the season, man, you're on that grind, and it's just nice to be able to knock some of this work out. We got a super chat. Tyler, you might have to ask me about this. This is here for the youth camp, Buckeye Grove hopeful. I'm not sure what day is the youth camp this year. Yeah, the youth camp is really good for if you got young kids that want to go. They have ambitions of playing college football. I started going to camps in eighth grade. They do it like a seventh. It's like a young kids camp before the high school stuff because the youth camp's a lot more fun. It's more geared towards everybody gets to play every position. You play like some speed ball and that kind of stuff. Like you get to the high school camp, man, it's wartime. I mean, you're going to it's competitive and they don't play the Buckeye ball like they used to back in the day. Now it's just pure competition and pure evaluation. And the camps they're not nearly as long either. Like the linemen go in the morning, the skill guys go in the afternoon, and once you're done at lunchtime, you're done as another lineman. So I think that's a lot easier on the coaches because they can see the different groups. But I also think that you get less of an evaluation because you only see guys for 3 hours and then they're done. So but most of the time when you're evaluating these kids, who you're there to see. There's not many guys that just kind of fall, out of, they don't come out of the woods and, oh, I never heard of that guy. Because you usually know everything about these kids before they even show up, and then you just got to get a good firm eval when they're there. Nevada, as we're getting into camp season, what do you glean from it? Are camps still important? Are they less important than they used to be? Is it just a way, like, I think it's just skewing younger and younger. Like, some of these kids, when they're young, you get your first eyeballs on them, your first contact. You maybe can be the first school to offer them, like we did with Tyler Atkinson and some of those guys. But what does camp season mean to you?
Well, I think it's less important, but it's not unimportant. It's less important in terms of camps used to be a way for like almost like a primary way of getting exposure with these kids, and now it's clearly a secondary, tertiary type of outlet to try to find those kids. But you're still going to find those unknown kids, those less heralded kids through a camp thing, and that's exciting to me. I mean, to me, that's kind of the part of recruiting that might be the most interesting. While it's exciting to see where the five stars go and where the big kids go, finding those kids, a little bit under the radar, maybe a little bit under publicized, a little bit unheralded, and find them through camp. I mean, again, I watch the NFL draft every year, and every year, you see 17 offensive linemen taken that were from like North Tuskegee Tech and Oklahoma Directional Weather Institute, and you're like, how did these kids miss the big schools? And it happens time and time and time and time and time again. So they're out there. It's just a matter of finding them. So I think camp's going to become more of a kind of a treasure hunting type of exercise. And hey, look, for me, it's different, but I find that exciting and certainly interesting.
I totally agree. I think it's just kids blossom at all different times. Again, like I kind of compare, evaluations, especially with offensive linemen. It's kind of like, if you compare the people that you went to high school with, and there's some people that by the end of high school, you're like, that guy is sure to be a superstar and, and a success. And then there's, the guy that's the loser who got straight Fs. And then, you come back to the 20-year reunion and the guy that got straight Fs is like the CEO of a big company and he turned his life around. And then the guy that everyone thought was destined for stardom is just kind of hanging out, at the local bar. He never really amounted to much, and he's just kind of living in the past. I mean, it's kind of like people blossom at different parts of their lives, and like with the offensive line, it's tough because you have to take a lot of projects because unless you're recruiting Laramie Tunsil or Paris Johnson. Those guys obviously, like any idiot in the universe can offer those guys, and they're probably going to be first round picks from the second they get there. And they both were. They're both 3 and out first round picks. Could have both been the number 1 overall pick. And they both, they have Hall of Fame potential, in the NFL. And people knew that when they were in high school. Now, there's only so many of those guys on this earth, So when people say, well, why don't you just take 5 stars? I'm like, well, go find them. Go show me how many there are. Go show me how many want to come to Ohio State. Because again, like, you might find them, but they usually live in Georgia, they live in Florida, live in Texas, and you got to go win a fist fight versus Georgia, Bama, Texas, Florida to get those guys. So, I mean, yeah, it's easy to say it, and it's easy to do it on Xbox, but it's hard to do it in real life. So you got to take guys, you got to project them a little bit, and it's easier when at Ohio State 'cause you have to take less projects, but you still got to figure out, do I take the taller kid with the weight issue? Do I take the little bit leaner kid who's a little bit shorter than I'd like? I mean, you just gotta find the right guys. And that's why so many guys slip through the cracks, because there's some guys that they don't develop until later in their careers. Like I was a guy that I was a very late bloomer. I didn't really start blooming until college. I wasn't that great in high school. And so I got to college and took it. Yeah. And I was always super serious, but like I just, I didn't start playing the game until ninth grade. So it took a long time for me to really figure it out and get good at it. And it took a hot minute. So, once you figure out how to play the game, you figure out, what you're doing, your technique, and, that takes millions of reps, like then you can really get to where you need to be. But yeah, the O-line, it's always going to be kind of a wacky science. And it's the same at quarterback. You see, the Browns took Baker Mayfield number 1 overall over Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. And we look back at that now and it's like you have 2 MVP candidates and you have a guy who's gotten cut twice and he's on like his 4th team in the last 12 months. So, it's just evaluations. And like I said, some guys, they bloom at different times and they get with the right coach. And, like that's something people don't talk about is you got to have the right coach that believes in you. You get the right coach, the right mix, you kind of hit that sweet spot, and then you just kind of take off. And I was fortunate, I had a good line coach, worked hard, had good strength coaches, and it worked out for the best. But yeah, we camp to me, it just I think it's more about the young guys. It's getting to know these freshmen and sophomores, the Chris Henrys, the Tyler Atkinsons, who are those 2026s that are going to be freshmen that are going to show up and tear the camp up. Because the older guys, a lot of these guys that are older that have been offered, they're probably not going to come up here unless they're just dying to do a camp. Because frankly, if you're a kid like Brandon Ennis, like camps are boring. They do 7-on-7 year round now, so they're kind of exhausted. And you've already got the Ohio State offer. Like Brandon didn't come to camp last year. I don't believe he was there 2 years ago. But I don't think he worked out a camp last year because he already had the offer. Like, what does he need to come up here again for? He visited and kicked it. And, a lot of these guys, they're kind of just come up here and visit and kick it mode. They're not come up here and grind for an offer unless they're trying to earn an offer. So, that's something that I've noticed over the last few years is there's just less kids that are the big time guys that are older guys that are like juniors going into their senior year that want to work out because they don't really have to because they're already, paid in full and they're already offered. What else? So, happy birthday to Scoop. This is 3 years today of Buckeye Scoop. So we appreciate you guys. Nevada, it's been a wild 3 years, but what do you make of it? I mean, our trajectory is something I absolutely love because we are the truth tellers. We are the ones that bring the heat every day. The inside information that people crave is where we're at. But what does it mean to be, what we are? Because like I said, I love our site. I love the people on our site. Thank you for all you guys that have supported us. We appreciate you guys. But what does it mean to you, Nevada?
Well, it just means being around great people every day, and the people on the site are just so terrific. I mean, been on message boards for 20 years, and the internet can be kind of a nasty place sometimes. A lot of people like that. There's conflict. There's I think it's kind of inherent to the medium, but on our site, it's just just a lot of really smart folks, a lot of really accomplished folks, a lot of people with some really interesting worldviews. Some I agree with, some that I don't agree with, but it's always interesting and the place is always popping. So it's always fun for me to kind of step in and, I've been asked a lot of times, my wife asks me this a lot. She's like, why do you do this? And I'm like, it's just fun. It's just fun to step in with smart people and, listen to stuff. And I've learned an awful lot about a lot of different things from being part of the Scoop and looking forward to the next 3 years. It's a great time for Ohio State football, and it's fun to be part of. We talk about that all the time about, when Ohio State football is good, it's good for business, and Ohio State football is really good, and we're really happy about that and really excited for the season to start. Just can't wait.
Yeah, I agree. It's every day is a blast. We've got it's a very good message board. I've seen burned boards, I've seen bad boards, I've seen unmoderated boards, unfiltered boards, and I want our thing to be like a country club. I want it to be fun, but I want there to be good respect, good discourse. We have a lot of bantering back and forth, a lot of debates back and forth, but it's civil, it's smart. And I think that's a big credit to the community again, because we want high-end people. We want great people. Again, I really appreciate all these people. And again, we're respectful because again, we're not going to put up with anything other than people being respectful to each other and having a great time and getting the best info because that's what we're here for and that's what we bring. So appreciate you guys so much. Any final thoughts, Nevada? We got looks like we got a pretty tight game. Looks like the Nuggets are up by 8, end of the third. Any final thoughts as we wrap up this episode? We'll get into an offensive line potential commit tomorrow or a visitor, and then we got a lot of expansion stuff. I mean, every day is like a new roller coaster for this expansion stuff, so we'll be getting into that. But any final thoughts?
Just Elijah Moore. Just keep an eye on him. Somewhat less heralded than some. I can tell you, not by Ohio State. Ohio State's really excited about him, and I think we're getting him. So buckle up. A lot to be excited about.
Yeah, I love it. Jay Bags, I appreciate you, my man. You're the best. Again, it's been a blast. And again, I couldn't do it with a better partner and better group and Bill Green, and it's just been fantastic. So I'm going to wrap this thing, guys. Again, appreciate you guys. As always, we're going to do some breakdowns these coming weeks as we get into camp season. So we have Bill Green on the ground giving coverage from the camp, be interviewing him every night. What did he like? What did he not like? Just grinding through some stuff. So I appreciate you. As always, if you enjoyed this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe. If you guys are not subscribed to our audio format on iTunes, please do that. That's a huge help for us. Download it, give us a listen on the audio format as we're driving to work. Obviously, we love the YouTube stuff because the YouTube stuff this is made for YouTube, but the audio is fun when you're just driving, you can't watch video. So appreciate you guys as always. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. Happy birthday, Buckeye Scoop, year 3, and we're about to go absolutely wild on the site. So we appreciate you guys. If you guys don't remember, BuckeyeScoop.com, we had a huge day today, a lot of expansion stuff coming. The Oracle, our expansion expert, is alluding to some big things popping in the next couple of months. So you got to get on there. Appreciate you guys as always. You guys have a great rest of your day. Go Bucks.